Welcome to the Pinning Combination Podcast. I'm KJ Pilcher alongside Dick Briggs, ready to break down some of the events over the last week in college wrestling to start out with, and then we'll transition to high school here in the state of Iowa as we approach the postseason. But I want to start out with this, Dick, and I don't do this very often. I sing at church, and I used to sing when the girls were going to sleep when they were little, until they were big enough to tell me not to sing anymore. So I'm going to do this. Oklahoma, where you and I and Iowa State go sweeping down the plain.
Woo!
How about that?
Yeah, that's nice. I like hearing you sing that. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's I tell you what a big sweep by you and I, Iowa State, taking out the Sooners and Oklahoma State Cowboys back to back like that.
Right. They proved you and I wrong, because we kind of made some quick predictions at the end of our podcast last time, and started with Panthers on Friday night. Really, and they did it kind of in an interesting fashion, because they had to come from behind to get it going, and then they ended up pinning a highly ranked wrestler, and it was a fun duel. I wish I could have been there and enjoyed it in Gallagher Iba.
Yeah, you mentioned that, down 12-0 after the first 4 weight classes, right? And then they go on a run where they get 4 big wins right in a row, and of course bonus points, I believe, from Lance Runyon. Almost a year to the date where he lost to Plott in the duel, and he gets a big pin over him at 74. Austin Yant with a big win over Whitlake as well. Derek Holschlag won at 157. I believe Austin Yant was Big 12 Wrestler of the Week for his performance down in Oklahoma there. 5 straight dual wins for him. And then Parker Keckeisen gave you and I a lead with a major at 184, I believe, over a 2-time All-American.
I think so. And ranked number 9 gear. So, but Yant's win over Whitlick, because Whitlick's a number 4 ranked kid, or was. And so he had that big win over the number 4 ranked kid, and then his OU win was over the 29th ranked kid. So big win for him. And then you mentioned Runyon. I'm guessing slapped on that cradle of his. If I remember right, he's got a big time cradle and got the pin on that one. So really nice. But we mentioned the biggies, and I kind of interrupted you. I know you're headed this way, but how about Terrell Gordon at 285? Holy cow! Yeah, you just don't know what to expect with Terrell, and then meets on the line in a big unfriendly atmosphere. And though I think maybe the arena might have been quiet by then. I don't know.
That and it brings up a good point about Gordon, and I believe Doug Schwab's talked about this. His transition from 97 to heavyweight has really been beneficial. Schwab's talked about Gordon's, now he can go into the weight room and not worry about, the number on the scale, and just worry about working out and come into practice and not have to worry about cutting weight and where you're at. He can just, kind of build himself up. And, this might be the start of a nice little stretch for him, getting acclimated to heavyweight. Might be a good move for him.
Right. You nailed it. Coach nailed it. When you can go into the room and go in to improve rather than to make weight, life is so much easier and so much more fun, and you become a better wrestler. So, as a coach, I always encourage kids to wrestle their weight and move up. Once in a while we talk about it and fit better for them, and they were mature and could handle it. We'd go down or whatever, but there's a lot to be said for that. You become a better student of the sport, and it's like I said, it just becomes more fun. It's been kind of fun to watch, since we're talking about both of them, you and I and Iowa State progress this last month, and we've seen Iowa State's progression, but boy, you and I just jumped out of the pages there, and I did not see that coming at all. So
I have to agree. I didn't either. I thought Iowa State would be able to get a win there, but you and I really, I mean, and you also look. Let's not forget Derek Holschlag beating Wyatt Sheets at 157. I think that was a 3-2 decision, maybe. But that's what really kicked it off, and that's a pretty notable win for Holschlag. He was in a battle there at 157 for the starting spot, and who knows? Maybe he's kind of cemented himself in there, and that's a big win that can kind of springboard him forward.
Boy, that's for sure. And Holschlag, that name definitely knows how to do it at the tournament time. So hopefully he can get it going. And Wyatt Sheets has been on that Oklahoma State lineup, that Cowboy lineup for the last 4 years, maybe, if it seems like. He's been around a long time.
So yeah, very big. And it was interesting to hear Coach Schwab afterwards talk about how the teams talked about doing stuff like this. We talked about it. And now they went out and did it. And of course, how do you follow that up? Well, they go to Oklahoma and come away with a 17-15 win. And, Doug Schwab kind of compared it to maybe the NCAA tournament, where you have, a big round, and then you have to come back and perform again the next day in another big round or big match. And you and I came through. Do you kind of agree with that comparison, that this could prepare them a little bit?
I think so. Yeah, I agree. That back to back, it wasn't. I mean, they had Friday, Sunday, but nevertheless, it's on the weekend, and it's just keeping your weight down, and there's no soft matches in those two lineup, or Oklahoma and Oklahoma State's lineup. So. And it was nice to see that different guys excelled in each of those different meets. Of course, Parker Kakaisen, he's always going to excel, but even he had a tough match, and with a familiar name, Keegan Moore, who used to be on the UNI team and then transferred down. So had a nice battle with him. So yeah, to your point, yeah, I think it helps a lot for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I'm pretty sure Keegan Moore might have won their wrestle off last year. And then Kakaisen worked his way back into the lineup, just kind of took over in competition. But I think Moore might have won that initial wrestle off.
I think you're right now that you say that. I had forgotten that. But Moore was not in the lineup to begin with, and then he just springboarded on. And it went to a number 3 finish in the nation in his freshman year. So.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned, different guys stepping up in that duel against Oklahoma. You had Kyle Biscaglia with a big win, and then Cale Happel came through with a major decision at 141, beating Zach Zemer 14-5. So you got, contributors, like you said, just kind of different guys stepping up when they needed to because that wasn't an easy win over number 21 Oklahoma, and they were able to do it.
Right. And, for Cale, he's kind of fairly new to the lineup. So he's still, as a young wrestler, was he a second year redshirt freshman, I think? So for him, he's still learning the ropes and kind of learning all the ins and outs of tough competition. And he's doing all right. I'm happy to see that he's doing great.
One of the things that you kind of noticed too, looking at the lineup against Oklahoma, the red shirt was pulled from John Gunderson at 197. He lost to number 10 Jake Woodley. Woodley's a guy that seems like has been right in that top 10 mix. Similar to what you said with Sheets, seems like Woodley's been around for forever, a very experienced wrestler, but. I think Gunderson has a lot of upside, and as the season, kind of accelerates here in the next few weeks, he could make some big strides heading into, maybe the Big 12s.
Right. It's good to get him in the lineup and know where he's at and what he's building instead of guessing and wondering and if it's going to be pulled or whatever. So, that's good news for him. Now he can focus and look towards the the Big 12 and the national tournament, hopefully.
Yeah, so UNI improves to 5-5 overall, 3-2 in the Big 12. And here's the UNI Oklahoma State rivalry has dated back to 1962. This is the first time the Panthers have beaten Ohio State on the road, or Oklahoma State on the road. So that's their first win in Stillwater in the series dating back to 1962. That's pretty amazing.
Right. And then when you tack on the loss to Oklahoma State or to Iowa State at home, it's the first time they've had back-to-back losses since 2009, they being the Cowboys. And then it's the first time they've had back-to-back losses at home, I guess, since 2009 and 2013 is the first time they had back-to-back. I said that backwards. So, but anyway, a long time. So that's pretty cool. And it's like you said early on, it's the first time UNI's won in Stillwater.
Here's the other thing too, that this whole weekend.
Is your stomach growling?
What? Yeah, so that's Hercules wants to get in on the commentary here, but the think it's not necessarily funny, but interesting that coming into that weekend, Oklahoma State was on win 499 at Gallagher-Iba Arena. So they probably had, something planned for number 500 going off one of those 2 days. And here they have to shelve everything for the next time because they're still sitting at 499 after the Panthers and Cyclones came through.
Right. I'm kind of looking around here for a tissue, but I don't see one. So I feel real bad for them. Not. Go Panthers and Clones, you betcha. But that's another day, not an Iowa day.
Yeah, right? And, Iowa State, I tell you, transitioning to the Cyclones, they looked very, very good this weekend, getting that first win over Oklahoma, I believe 22-9, and then following it up with a 20-12 win over Oklahoma State. They're up to 5th now in the dual rankings, and I tell you what, we've seen this build from them, and they're just rolling right now.
Right, I'm not surprised, and they're solid at all 10 weights. And obviously some are stronger than others when you've got David Carr in the lineup. Then the rest, but they're building around him, man. And those guys that were maybe the weaker spots are not so weak anymore. They're really solid. I don't know that all 10 are ranked, but they should be close if they're not at this point in time. And I'm I'll start at the bottom at 125. Terrell took his first loss in that Oklahoma match, but then turned around and upsets Master Giovanni, who's ranked number 6. And now, so that's Terrell first loss of the year. He turns around and beats the number 6 ranked wrestler. Way to come back. And that's what you need to do in your championship caliber teams. So,
yeah, the way he rode, I think he finished with like 1 minute and 43 seconds of riding time for that decisive point. And I mean, that's you're taking control of somebody that way. It's not any cheap points or anything. You're in control and you're handling somebody to rack up almost 2 minutes of riding time.
Right. And I've never met Kyson, but I know his brother who wrestles up at Wartburg. Go figure, a couple of Hawaiians in the Iowa team. So good for them.
Kind of looking, Ian Parker had a nice win at 41. David Carr, a dominant win over Wyatt Sheets there. I tell you what, David Carr is just a force. And watching him just make things look so easy against, a strong competitor in Sheets. I mean, he's obviously one of the most dominant wrestlers, regardless of weight, pound for pound, as they say.
Right. And I don't know if you remember, we talked about this last year, but when you have the Carr Sheets matchup, that's you've got their dads that were national champions, and Nate Carr, of course, a couple of times, and then Mike Sheets was a champ for Oklahoma State. So kind of interesting second generation matchup there. But you're right, Carr's just been incredible. He wrestled a close match against Oklahoma, 3-1 match over number 16 Justin Thomas. But I think that's good. Carr I don't think he's the type of kid that's going to rest on his accomplishments or anything like that. He's still going to be focused. But it's this is going to sound funny, but I think it's good to have a close match to get you back into that room and get motivated to separate the distance and go, oh man, I got to keep working, So not that it's a wake up call, but it's a motivational call. How about that?
Sure. And I know one of the guys that we've really been high on this season, Marcus Coleman at 184 in that duel, had an 8-3 win over Dakota Gear. Just another example of the gains that Marcus Coleman has made and is doing so well this year.
And he's wrestling with confidence, and when you've got that going, that's a big thing. So it's kind of interesting with all three of our Iowa teams, Iowa United and Iowa State. We've got guys in different situations, but right now it seems the bulk of Iowa State is in that position where they're feeling pretty confident, feeling good about themselves. UNI is kind of going that way, and Iowa's kind of hovering in some spots. So we'll see how that plays out. But no question, Coleman had a good weekend.
Yeah, Coleman and Younger Bastida really impressive on their feet. Coleman had takedowns in all three periods. Younger Bastida had 8 takedowns. Of course, he freestyle guy from Cuba. That's where he's probably the most comfortable and really dominated in an 18-6 major decision at 197. And then the heavyweight, Coach, you're the one that's really pointed this out a couple times so far that Sam Schuler has really kind of stepped up his game a little bit, and you've seen that heavyweight improve, especially since the holiday break.
Right. He's just, kind of that one, little steps and bigger steps, and not so, he's just always moving forward, and he's athletic, and I'm anxious to see how far he can take it this year. Yep, I'm definitely high on him, as I've been with a lot of guys on the Iowa State team. So,
things kind of, no disrespect to Air Force and West Virginia, but things kind of stepped back a little bit as both of those two teams come to Iowa, facing flip-flopping between Ames and Cedar Falls this coming weekend. I guess right now I don't see any reason not to expect UNI and Iowa State to take care of business and then set up that big duel a week from Friday at the McLeod Center.
Right, that big duel meaning Iowa State and UNI. Yep. Right. And, though, about the time you take the attitude of, okay, we beat Oklahoma State, we beat Oklahoma, now we've got a lesser team, boom, that's when they're going to catch you. And if not, as a team, like winning the duel, they're going to catch individuals. And that's where you've got to, at this point in time, you've got to be building your resume for that Big 12 seed tournaments and the seed that you're going to get. So there's a lot to be wrestling for. So yeah, that you can kind of look past them, but you don't want to because there's too much on the line. So I hope they don't, either team and individually.
Yeah, because UNI's already wrestled Air Force. If you remember, they went out to Colorado and the Northern Colorado duel got canceled. So kind of an impromptu duel with Air Force. So that's an opponent you're familiar with. So, you don't want to kind of let down thinking, oh, we've already beaten them once. We'll be fine. Bring on West Virginia.
Right. And looking back, I lived in Colorado for 2 years, went to grad school out there and drove by and wrestled in various sites against Air Force, but I never got to go on campus. And it's such a beautiful looking campus. And, besides the background, but it's the campus itself. And that was neat for those UNI guys to get to enjoy that. And anyway,
cool.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens the second time around.
and then, like we said, February 11th, those two teams will go head to head, and could be both of them could be riding long win streaks here. So, could be a really, really fun duel. At the McLeod Center, and listening to Doug Schwab on his weekly press conference, he was urging people to get out there and come to these meets, and especially get ready for that one February 11th. So
right, and not to overlook it, but yeah. So I haven't even looked at the lineups. I don't want to. It's not. You can't do that yet. That's next week.
Well, let's shift gears to the University of Iowa. Of course, we had the big 1 versus 2 duel in Iowa City between number 1 Penn State and number 2 Iowa. Penn State came away with a 19-13 victory. Really kind of pulled away in 2 of the last 3 weight classes to get the win. But, I tell you what, that was probably one of the most electric atmospheres I found myself in. From start until, I would say, maybe 197, it was a nonstop buzz. Once Max Dean kind of secured the win for Penn State, it fell back a little bit. There were a couple eruptions, during Cassiope's match with Kirk Vallette. But for the most part, from 125 through 197, there was a constant buzz of electricity. It was a fun duel.
Right. If you remember, I predicted a possible 16-16 duel meet, and Iowa was so close to winning at 141, at 184, 74, and at 197. If they win either of those 3 matches, 2 of them went to overtime, and 1 they were leading with a minute left in the match, and they couldn't secure the win on either of those 3. But if they do, it's a 16-16 tie. And now I'm wondering, who would have won probably the match points, and it's not worth counting up, but it would have been fun.
Yeah, and even 133. That I know DeSanto won the first matchup between those 2, but I think that was the probably best he's looked against Roman Bravo Young. He really came out intense and aggressive. He wrestled about as quick as pace as you could for the majority of that 7 minutes. But what does it say about Roman Bravo Young that DeSanto, who's taken down, just about anybody, got in at least a half dozen times, maybe even more than that, and could not finish. He got in on good shots and was in good position, but Roman Bravo Young's defense to prevent any takedowns like that, and then he was pretty efficient. He nailed his 1 takedown, and that was enough. And he is just, when you think you might have him, you don't.
Well, I'm going to say more like about 20 times he was in on it. I mean, he was a ton. Roman Bravo Young has done his homework. He knows what DeSanto's strengths are. You've seen him wrestling before, where he puts his arm behind his back and takes that arm tie away, it's for his outside carry or whatever you want to call it. And then, but with DeSanto, you're right. He came out with all heart and had tons of shots and was coming in at, but everything was straight on, and he had really no effective finish or even attempt at it. It seemed like a lot of times he'd get in there and didn't turn the corner, stayed straight on, or didn't get it lifted up and so forth. But again, that, attribute that to RBY's great defense. But here's something I learned by watching this meet last Friday was, if you have great shot defense and you can score off of that, you're going to win, because that's most of the matches in the entire meet were that way. Not all of them, but maybe 8 of them or whatever. More of the takedowns were defensive takedowns, at least the first takedown.
Right. And just to backtrack, just the overall couple things for overall with the meet. There were no first period points scored through the first 5 matches, which absolutely astonished me. And then when you know, Alex Marinelli was the first one to score in the first period at 165, and then at 174 with Strachey and Kemmerer, they went scoreless through the first period as well. So you had 6 out of 10 matches with no first period points between the top 2 teams in the country. What do you make of that?
I did not realize that. I guess I hadn't really thought about it as it was going. So wow, that's incredible. I think that's 2 high-powered teams that respect each other and wrestlers in those first 5 weights and all through the lineup. But that's incredible. Wow, sheesh.
Yeah, and on the backside of that, something that, you know, I think the prevailing thought when Iowa wrestles somebody, that Iowa usually wins the third period, and that's where they maybe kind of break people down a little bit, or their conditioning comes into play. But this duel, for the most part, it was Penn State that was either pulling away or taking a lead in the third period.
Right. They won the 2 overtime matches. They had wasn't there a takedown in the last Dean with his takedown and 4-point turn in the last minute of the match. And you know, this is going to sting a little bit maybe for some Iowa fans, but if you think back to the national finals last year, that same thing might have happened where Penn State kind of won at the end of the match as well. So
yeah, kind of deja vu. 141 and 74. You know, Nick Lee versus Ironman, Strachey and Kemmerer, rematches of the NCAA championship bouts. The matches in St. Louis were decided in sudden victory, and again, both of them went into overtime. Lee with a takedown, just kind of right out of the gate, a counter to almost look like almost a desperation attempt by Ironman right off the whistle, which you know, didn't need to do, and Lee was ready for it, and he got the takedown, and then you know, Strachey with the right out and tiebreakers to beat Kemmerer 2-1.
Right, and with Ironman, I have to credit him. He had a fabulous takedown right at the end of, you know, maybe 15 seconds or so, 18 seconds, somewhere in that vicinity, and then had to work his fanny off just to ride and take it into overtime. And because of that, I think you could see it in his face and in his body language that he was gassed or tired, certainly tired. And I just think that in his mind, he goes, I'm going one shot here. And whereas I think if you step back and kind of let yourself and your body kind of catch up, if you because you got a 2-minute period, you know, sudden victory period, instead of just doing that desperation shot. I'm with you. I think it was kind of desperation out of fatigue, but and so at least we know what we need to do to fix it. And when he puts the gas on, he can take Lee down. We know that. We just saw that, you know, in the third period. And so, you know, if he gets himself into his best condition he's ever been, I think it'll happen at Big Tens and Nationals. So.
I thought Marinelli was very impressive with his major over Berge. You know, this was this is probably more of the Marinelli that people expect to see. I mean, he did a great job just being on his offense, mat returns, and doing it throughout the duration of the match to get that major against the quality kid.
Right, and I guess my take on it is I was disappointed with the first half of his match in terms of pace, but that's kind of Marinelli style, you know, wear him down. And then the second half of the match certainly did that, what you're speaking of, that pace, and particularly that last takedown to get the major. So really great effort there. But, you know, again, I'd like to see him scoring more often in the first half of the match. But I'm greedy, right?
Then one of the matches, this was it was kind of a shame because there were people heading for the exits before this match. You know, I know the dual score was pretty much decided at that point, and that, you know, whatever. But you missed people that had their back to the mat walking to the concourse. Missed a pretty darn good performance from Cassiope, and it's kind of interesting. You know, Kurt Vallette comes out and gets the first takedown right away, and then for some reason decides to go upper body with Cassiope, and you know, he kind of you know, capitalized on those positions and got a couple of takedowns. Didn't get the near fall, but was close. But turned those into his own takedowns, and Cassiope came away with a real quality win. That's, you know, Kurt Vallette just beat Mason Paris.
Right, exactly. And you know, I thought that might have been the most impressive win of the night, especially considering the deflation that the building was going through, you know. And you're right. There wasn't a lot of energy left in the building. So, you know, that's why I think that might have been the most impressive. And I'm not sure why Kurt Vallette did start going upper body, and you know, he went to a bear hug and tried I think an inside leg trip, and I mean, you're doing that with a known Greco wrestler, you know, so, and freestyle of course, but you know, I'm like, that's probably not the smartest strategy at this point in time. So, but
especially how his leg attack was so effective early on. You'd think you'd want to keep going to the well until it dried up, but maybe Cassiope kind of forced him to go that way. I'm not sure, but boy, it kind of surprised me, and Cassiope capitalized on it. That's for sure.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I thought Max Mirren wrestled well at 149, but that was a match, you know, you expected him to win and come out on top. The other thing that that is noteworthy, obviously, no Drake Ayala for Iowa. You know, Jesse Ibarra stepped in and was wrestling well until probably about the third, and then, you know, gave up a late turn and points there, gave up the major. Now, kind of, you know, there's the grapevine is loud and bustling right now, trying to figure out, okay, what's wrong with Ayala? Is it his shoulder? Is it his pectoral muscle? Is it something else? Is he done for the season? Is he going to be back? You know, nothing has really been addressed other than Tom Brand saying when he's ready to go, he'll go. It'll be his decision. You know, we've talked, you know, which is kind of standard, but, you know, how bad does Iowa need Drake Ayala in that spot for the rest of the regular season? And then how crucial will he be come the postseason if they have any type of aspirations of a national title?
Well, it depends on a couple of things. First of all, if you're speaking of how bad do they need Ayala, is he going to be 100%? If he's 100%, they need him badly. If he's going to come back and only be 50%, then they don't need him, because he's not going to provide anything, and it's going to put him in potential danger, maybe with, you know, hurting. I don't know what the injury is or whatever, and but you know, so you know, to get him back, if he's not going to be productive, it doesn't help him much, in my opinion. So yeah, if we can get back 100%, absolutely, that's going to hurt him, I think, a little bit. You know, because at some points, I think, you know, he's good enough to be a top a medalist, maybe. So when he's 100%.
So you know, Iowa's first loss snapped. I think it was maybe 28 straight duels that they'd won, and I think maybe 27 or somewhere in the 20s as far as in the Big 12 as well. Now they have Wisconsin coming to town on Saturday. You know, Wisconsin's put together a pretty good season so far.
They're building it. They've got it coming. I don't think they're quite with Iowa, but it's definitely I mean, the Big Ten, you don't get any weekends off there. I mean, each duel is going to be competitive, certainly at different, weight classes for sure. So, yeah, it's another fun meet to look forward to.
Yeah, so Wisconsin's 9-1 overall. They're 13th in the Win Institute or Wrestling Institute News Magazine. Sorry, Wrestling Insider News Magazine. Third time's the charm there for me. But they've climbed up to 13th in the polls there, thanks to Mike Finn of Win Magazine for providing that for us. But yeah, senior day, it's a big night, or afternoon actually. It starts at 2:30, which is kind of odd considering it's sectional weekend. You would like to have that maybe later in the evening so high schools and other fans can get there to attend, or at least not take away from attendance for the high school meets. But you've got guys like Kemmerer, Marinelli, Murin, Ironman, seniors that this will be their last time wrestling at Carver. And this has really been a special group of athletes that helped Iowa get back on top.
Right. It's like you said, a large, impressive group. We're just mentioning the starters, but there's others on the team as well. Is Young also a senior?
Yes.
Maybe you mentioned him, I don't know. But yeah, it's quite a group. So yeah, get down there and support those seniors.
And just one last thing too. I just want to double check. One of the seniors for Iowa, and you'll have somebody like this occasionally over the years, somebody that could have gone to another program and been a starter, maybe even excelled somewhere else. But Aaron Costello came here, was behind Sam Stoll, and then Tony Cassiope. He's had good results where he's gone to open tournaments. Last year or 2 years ago, he was 18-4. He's one of those program guys that every program needs. And boy, you talk about dedication and sticking it out for 4 years. He could have gone somewhere else, to wrestle or be a starter. But he's one of those guys that bought into the program, and another senior that may not have gotten the headlines over the years, but certainly contributed.
Absolutely, man. I tell you, I as a coach, I love those guys because it's hard. It's easier to come out and be, when you're a starter, you're getting your hand raised, having success. It's easier to come into the room and day in and day out. But when you don't get that opportunity because you're not on varsity, it's tougher. And so those role players are so valuable to a program. And I think he filled in, didn't he, early on when Cassiope was coming from the Worlds and wrestled a meet or two early on there, certainly tournaments, but yeah. And those are the kind of guys you can't appreciate enough.
Well, let's move to Division III action. We had a big meet last week, and we've got another big one coming up this week. Of course, they both involve Wartburg. You actually went to watch the Battle of the Bergs up in Minneapolis. The belt's coming back, or has come back already to Waverly. Staying home here. Right.
And the Battle of Bergs is usually a hugely contested, very closely contested dual meet. And this year it was maybe not as contested, but certainly the meet score wasn't. Some of the matches were close, but Wartburg went out and really just took control of the meet and never looked back. And in their duel, they beat 3 number 2 ranked kids in the lineup. So the Kiner got a big start at 25, former Carlisle wrestler. And then Joe Pins, Hempstead wrestler, got a big win. And then Zarin Terrakina, upset number 2, Sam Stolen was awarded the the American Rivers Conference Wrestler of the Week. And then Chris Rump got a big win. David Hollingsworth upset number 2 Tyler Shilson, 12-8, big win there for him. Had beaten him. Hollingsworth had beaten him in the semifinals of the NWCA duels last year, so another big win over him. And then Zane Mulder got a win over number 2 Solomon Nielsen, who is the wrestler that Kyle wrestled in the finals of the NCAA or NWCA tournament last year. And then Kyle beat number 11 ranked, though had a little first period interest, got the takedown, got reversed, and then kind of like, actually very much like Warner, got the back bow put on him. Some people call it the bow and arrow. And, it's illegal in high school. Honestly, I think it should be illegal in college. That hurts like a SOB. So, anyway, got turned for 4, then got turned back over, got it put on him again and had to fight for about a minute and a half to not get turned again. Came back and beat him 11-6. So nice comeback from Kyle there. And then Kobe Woods at 97-1 as well. So Wartburg comes away with a big lopsided win. And it says it's the 11th straight time that Wartburg's won in the Battle of the Bergs. That, Augsburg has beaten Wartburg at the national duels like maybe 4 years ago in the finals or whatever. And then, but the belt itself is 9 years. I think it's been 9 years. It's never spent a night in Minnesota.
Wow.
Well,
yeah, that's nice. So you get to keep it tucked away in Waverly for another year.
Right. And then Augsburg went 2 nights later and wrestled lacrosse, UW lacrosse, who won the national duels. Augsburg and Wartburg were not there. They beat them 20-19. And, but, so Wartburg put a pretty good thumping on Augsburg, and then Augsburg won a close one with UWL. So anyway, nice one there. The other things that happened in Division III, Luther beat UD 18-13. They also beat Simpson 39-8 and Nebraska Wesleyan 38-9. Co beat Simpson 46-4. Nebraska Wesleyan 55-0, and then Loras beat Nebraska Wesleyan 54-0. So tough weekend for Nebraska Wesleyan. And then, oh yeah.
Well, I was just going to mention the Luther weekend, the win over University of Dubuque. That happened to be Dave Mitchell's 300th career dual victory. Only the 3rd coach in American Rivers Conference / Iowa Conference history to reach that plateau. The other 2, obviously Jim Miller of Wartburg, and then Al Baxter at Buena Vista. So that's a pretty big accomplishment for Mitchell. Really one of the good guys, out there. About as good of a person as you'll find. The other thing that I found that I thought was really, really cool, his son Isaiah had a win, I believe at 174 or 184 in that duel. Actually 184, and kind of set it up for Donovan Korn to secure the victory at 197. But the fact that Isaiah contributed a win to that milestone victory was pretty cool.
Right, and that's pretty good company to be in, the 300 club, those 3 guys. So really nicely done, and congratulations to him. And it's special that his son, does he have 2 sons that are on the team?
Yes.
Yeah, 2 sons on the team, one that happened to wrestle and get the win. Yep. And I have to give kudos to McGovern and his group at the University of Dubuque. I got to watch them wrestle a few times this year, and they're a much improved team. And they 18-13, that's a battle. And so good meet there, and congratulations for 300.
Yeah.
That sets up this Friday's contest up at senior night up in Waverly, Co versus Wartburg, and it's gonna be a dandy. So if you're not doing anything, you can sit down at your computer and watch it. If you don't want to go up and attend and watch it, but there's gonna be some great matches there.
I'll be there. Will you be there?
I am going to be there. I'm senior night. I have a senior. I better be there, right?
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I do have a conflict. So, since you brought this up, my brother is being inducted into the Jayhawk Wrestling, or not Jayhawk Athletic Hall of Fame at Jefferson, and so that's that night. So I'm going to have to miss his induction at Jefferson. I'll be there to begin with, so I'm going to be cutting it close and get in the car and hustle up to Waverly for senior night.
Gotcha. So congratulations to Don, by the way, for that honor. The Jayhawk Athletics Hall of Fame, very, very young. It's only been they've only started inducting individuals like the last couple years. So this is something would have been many moons ago had this honor been around. But definitely something to Don as a high school athlete, a college wrestler, college coach. Well deserved for Don.
Right. I mean, he's a couple of things of noteworthy. He wrestled in the state finals against a guy named Dan Gable. Don was Dan Gable as a senior, and then also he's the only athlete to ever become a Division I coach in any sport that came out of Jefferson. So that's kind of neat.
Oh wow! I did not realize that.
Yeah. So I'm sad that I'm going to miss it, but I mean, I got to be up there, and he understands it too. So.
And his high school coach was.
Well, the first 2 years was Jack Fisk, and then his senior year was Gary Kurtelmeyer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Kurtelmeyer talked him into going down to Iowa, and Don wrestled varsity down there all 3 years. Back then, that you couldn't compete as a freshman, and was a co-captain on the team.
Awesome. So congratulations to him, and obviously a lot of ranked guys gonna go head to head here on Friday night. Any weights that really kind of stand out to you that these are big time or key matches?
So I'm kind of a nerd, right? I've already figured it all out, right? Or else like that, right? So I have 5 weights that are toss-ups. Five weights that I think are toss-ups, and maybe some others. So, and it's going to be a close meet. I think the first 3 weights are close enough that I'm calling them toss-ups. I think that 57 depends on who comes out for each team, but
Sure.
That 57 pound is a national finals where Hollingsworth pinned Henderson. If he doesn't pin him, I don't know which way that goes. So to me, it's a toss-up there. And then at 165, I'm not sure what'll happen there. Gus Moyle, has looked very good and almost beat Beecham, the number 1 ranked 74 pounder. Wes Moyle started out at 57. He weighed 65, right. Bumped up and almost beat him. So he's looked very good for Co. I got to favor Co at heavyweight with Reeves. I don't know who Wartburg will put out there, but Reeves is second ranked and looked very good, and he's a pinning machine too. So anyway, I'll go ahead and favor Wartburg at 74 and 84, and then at 49, a couple of 3 strong ones there. But to me, it's going to be a very close meet. And the one that's most intriguing, I guess, is that 157 pound match, the national finals again. So
cool.
I've also been very impressed with Bryce Park, a Linmar athlete for Co at 33. He'll wrestle Joe Pins, Hempstead. So so that's a fun part of Division III. You get a lot of Iowa and especially local flavor, and the kids even come through the ranks, and it's just to me that's so much more fun. It's a lot of fun. I should say more fun, but you get to the Division I's, and now you're coming from all over the country. You don't know these kids for quite as long. So Division III is a blast if you give it a chance, man.
Kind of interesting. We watched both of those brothers at Jefferson on Saturday at the MVC tournament. Mitchell Pins for Dubuque Hempstead, and then Braden Park for Linmar. Both were in the different finals, one at 106 and then Park at 126. So kind of interesting, kind of fun connection there. But we kind of wrap up. Any other thoughts or any last comments about the college portion?
Yeah, just a couple of upcoming meets. If you're interested, UD, we were mentioning Russell's Loris on Friday. BV, Russell's Simpson on Friday, and they're at Simpson. So keep an eye on those meets. Be fun. And then, of course, go at Wartburg. So.
All right, so keep an eye on that. And man, it's not long that that Midwest, lower Midwest regional, is right around the corner.
Right. It and a lot of wrestling between now and then. You know that little sheet that I showed you. I'll do that for all the weights and see who's going to be the seeded and potential qualifiers and such. But it's so competitive, and you've got your three top teams, Cole, Loris, and Wartburg, and then you've got so many other teams that are the peripheral teams that are going to bring in those competitive wrestlers that are going to make an honest run at being a qualifier and bump out some of those top three teams. So it's just fun to battle and watch that, and it's nerve-wracking too.
Yeah, we're just a little over 3 weeks away from that qualifier starting February 25th at Dubuque. So yeah, it just seems like things will have flown by already as far as that goes. So, speaking of the postseason, we'll talk a little bit about high school wrestling now. We just got done with conference championship weekend, and 1A and 2A schools will be starting the postseason here in about 3 days. But big weekend last week. Anything really kind of catch your attention Saturday?
Well,
for the conference meets?
Let's start since you mentioned the MBC, let's start there.
Okay.
You and I kind of thought Linn-Mar was the front runner there, and they proved to be, and significantly. They really had a great tournament. You'll get into the details, but they had 4 champs, I think it was, and a runner-up, and just a strong performance there, and out distanced the second place Iowa City West by nearly 60 points or something like that. So that's one that stands out.
Yeah, you mentioned the first time they've won the MVC Super Meet. You got to remember when they had some really good teams. Prairie was in the midst of winning 5 in a row, and before that it was Iowa City West that won 9 in a row. Had some really good teams, but Linn-Mar. You mentioned the 4 champions. They had another runner-up. All 13, they didn't have anybody at 195, but all 13 wrestlers placed. 11 of them were 6th or better. So not only did they have more champs than anybody to show that top tier talent, but they also had that balance across the lineup that allowed them to score a lot of team points.
Right, and credit one of the families. Or the Noctemorn family had 2 champs. Kane, like you've been mentioning and pointing out, has just been on a rip roaring go, man. He's been pinning every tight, and if I remember right, did they both pin through the tournament here?
Yep, Kane had 3 and Tate had 4 at 170 pounds.
Right, so I mean, good win there. Grant Crest was their champion at 145, and at heavyweight, Luke Gaffney, who impressed me. But when we got to watch him in the duel City High when he was battling there, so very impressive wrestler and athlete in Gaffney. So and Braden Park that we mentioned was their runner up at.
Yeah, kind of interesting with Park. He finished second to Cale Kurtz, the son of Marcus Kurtz, who wrestled and was a long-time coach at Co, which we just got done talking about. We watched them in the duel about 10 days before the conference meet, where Park came away with a 1-0 victory. This time, Kurtz won. I think it was 5-3. And Kurtz finished 2 takedowns. I think 1 in the first, 1 in the third. or something like that. But a nice job by Cale Kurtz to come back and avenge that loss, and especially getting a pair of takedowns when he couldn't execute those in the duel at Linmar.
Right, and you might see them wrestle again sometime down the road this season. Maybe at state, maybe somewhere else. I don't know if they match up with districts or regional duels or anything like that. I think
could be a regional duel.
Right. Yeah.
Pleasant Valley and Iowa City High wrestle the first match, and then the winner gets Linmar next Wednesday.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So that
could be them. Good point.
But that being said, I think it could go either way. And those guys are such competitors, and it could be one that goes, it's my turn, it's your turn, sort of thing. So, not that anyone wants to give up a turn. How about Prairie? Man, their champ is just looking so good this year. Holy cow! So,
yeah, Blake Jaimo dominated his way through the 113-pound bracket. He has looked as good as anybody this year. Really on a mission. And of course, look at Prairie as a team. I never say this with disrespect, but when a team surprises me, it's not anything bad on their part. I'm not saying anything bad about them. It's just that they wrestled really, really well, and I just maybe didn't expect it. If you would have told me Prairie finished third, I probably would have taken that bet if you wanted to wager on it. But they came through, looked very, very good, had really good balance. Alex Bumba was a runner-up at 120 to go along with Jaimo's title to kind of lead the way. But Prairie as a whole, that's a pretty good performance for them. They did a nice job wrestling Saturday.
Right. We talked about in our last podcast, we kind of Washington beating Prairie, and maybe the first time ever. I don't think they took kindly to that. Not about our words, but about not winning that. And then, so you're right. Come back and to take third and have 7 of their kids in the top 4. That's doing it. That's a good turnaround and way to answer that. So good job I agree with for the Hawks at Prairie.
Iowa City West ended up getting second. Of course, they're still without Robert Avila, but Hunter Garvin became, let me double check, I think the 17th 3-time MVC champ. Of course, no tournament last year, kind of prevented him from being a 4-timer, but he had Dylan Witt in the finals. Witt from Cedar Falls. That was a rematch of last year's 138-pound 3A state title match. And Garvin, just like he did last year, dominated this one and got the fall. But you talk about dominant performances. You mentioned the Nakaborans, Blake Jaimo this season. Hunter Garvin, who's going to Stanford. Him and Ben Keeter at the top of the list. And of course, Garvin was voted OW of the tournament.
Right, and that, when you said Jaimo and how dominant he's been, those other 3 names immediately came to mind, and that you just mentioned, and it made me thinking, how many state finalists and potential champs are we going to have out of this group that comes from the Valley? And not just the champions here, but maybe runners up for flopping. I think we've got a really strong group here, that could be bring some gold medals home from Des Moines.
For Iowa City West, also Grant Odell, doesn't get maybe the attention that some of his teammates have gotten over the years and stuff, but Grant Odell, I think he's a 2 or 3-time state medalist for West. So going for his 3rd or 4th this year. But he's a 2-time conference champion, winning at 106 as believe as a sophomore. So, he came away with the 138-pound title this year. So, Odell, Iowa High's Ben Keeter, who just rolled through 220 as expected. And Christian Stanek of Xavier became the 57th, 58th, and 59th two-time conference champion since the first MVC Super Meet with 14 teams started in 1993.
Right. And, to win this conference, holy cow, that's saying something. I've had state champions that did not win conference titles.
Really?
Yep. And one of them was named Ironside.
But was that Tim?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sinclair was the champ, and I don't think Tim even made the finals, if I remember right. But and I've had others as well. But yeah. So my point for bringing that up is that's how tough this conference is. So sometimes you can't win that being one state.
That says a lot for sure. Just a couple other quick facts. Keeter's the first city high two-time champ since Ethan Wood Finley. Did it just a few years ago, 2018 and 2019. Stanek is Xavier's first two-time champ since Josh Gerke, who won in 2015 and 2016. Of course, Gerke was a NWCA champ last year for Co down in Coralville. But yeah, very impressive. One thing, it's not just the MVC related with this. I want to get your opinion on the stats, because sometimes I can be a numbers geek here. But 13 of the 14 top seeds won here. Now, looking at all the 9 area conferences that I cover, I think it was 107 out of 126 weight classes were won by the number 1 seed.
Wow.
That's 85% roughly. Is there a disparity between the top and the rest of the field? Is it just the coaches and tournament organizers got the seeds right? Is it some other kind of factor? Or what does it say about kind of the state of wrestling right now, at least in these Eastern Iowa conferences?
I don't know if disparity is the right word, but something to that effect, I think, is the yeah. So I think that those kids are just heads and above of some of the others, and it made it easy for the seeding committees to seed them. I mean, you look at some of these, and I don't know how you could not see some of the champions, particularly the ones we mentioned, that have had just phenomenal seasons. But then, to do it in all 9 conferences, that's something else, and to wrestle to the seeds. And, I looked over, I saw that you had posted something like that. So I got curious with the CIML, and they also, were pretty much onto their seeds too. I think they might've been 11 out of 14 or something, but remember there's 18 teams, I think, in the CIML. So, I thought I was onto something, because I started out at the 106, and like 2 or 3 of the very first ones were the number 1 seed didn't win, but then it fell into place. So anyway, so yeah, I think there's an elite group right now that makes it easy for the number 1 seed to win. I guess they're that good.
Yeah. The other note that I thought was kind of interesting, kind of going through all that, the lowest seed to come away with a conference title was Anamosa heavyweight Cole Sigler. He was the number 4 seed in the River Valley Conference heavyweight bracket. Ended up being the number 1 seed from Mid Prairie, I believe, 3-2, and then beat West Liberty's Quentin Roca, who happened to be the number 3 seed. So that was the one bracket where your 1 and 2 didn't even make it to the finals. And Sigler ended up beating Roca 3-2 in the ultimate tiebreaker. So that was one where it was kind of up in the air, and kind of interesting to see how that played out.
Right. And the place where you may see it, maybe not so much in 3A. Well, maybe, I don't know. Is at state. I mean, obviously, when you're seeding now, it's still kind of new, the seeding process. And so, plus you're doing it across the whole state, and you don't get as much. I mean, you get a lot of it where, people would meet up with others, but then you get common opponents, and it just gets a little more muddled down the road. And so you may see it there. I think we saw that a little bit the last year's state, if I remember.
Let's move over to the WAMAC, where West Delaware won its 5th conference title in a row. They beat runner-up Indy 278 to 236.5. West Delaware received titles from Carson Less at 120, Blake Engel 132, Brent Yankovic at 138, Kyle Cole at 170, and then Wyatt Volker at 195. Two runners-up with Logan Payton at 152 and Isaac Spettkeller at 160. But no surprise there. But heck, Indy, without any champs, kept it pretty competitive.
Well, and that's amazing, really. Independence. First of all, well done by West Delaware. I mean, they did 5 champs, or 7 in the finals and 5 champs and 3 thirds. And that's pretty decent. 10 in the top 3. Very, very well done. But Independence, no champs, and still keeping it respectable, and to play second, man, that's Independence. But they had 11 in the top 4 and 13 in the top 6. So I don't think they had. I think they only had 13 wrestlers. So all 13 of their wrestlers placed in the top 6. So again, in that conference, well done. But that's Independence they're sneaky, man. They, we kind of focus on West Delaware, and then Independence is getting the job done over here, and maybe in a little bit more quiet fashion. So good for Coach Doyle and company up there.
Yeah, Independence. They had second place finishes from Caden Kramer at 113, Tyler Whelan at 126, and then Marcus Beatty at 182. A couple of the individual matchups that I kind of wanted to bring up. Brent Yankovic, the freshman at 138, who won. He's ranked 5th. He beat South Tama's Logan Arp, who's ranked 3rd, 7-2 in the final. So that was a big win there for the youngster from West Delaware. And then in the semifinals, Benton Community's 11th ranked Brendan Hain beat 3-time state finalist and defending state champ Isaiah Weber in the semis. Hain ended up finishing second. Cooper Sanders, who's ranked number 1 from Vinton Shellisburg in the finals. But that's a pretty big win for Hain of Benton Community.
Absolutely, man. Anytime you can be a state champion, kudos to you. Well done there. I haven't had a chance to watch the Sanders wrestle, and I'm sad that I haven't, because I don't know much about them other than that they're both very good, and so I'm anxious to get to see them wrestle here.
Very, very solid kids from what I saw at Benton Community. One thing about Gabe Sanders, the brother that wrestles at 152, he beat Logan Payton in the finals 1-0. Interestingly, since the semifinals of the Benton Community Tournament on January 8th, I think it might be. January 8th. Gabe Sanders and Logan Payton, who are both ranked like 1 and 3 or 2 and 3, top 5 wrestlers. Sanders has beaten Logan Payton 4 times since January 8th. They've wrestled 4 times. It was a 1-0 win in the finals at the WAMAC. Then you had a 2-0 victory, a win by fall, and then a 7-2 victory and sudden victory. So a 5-point move to win it there. But the reason why I bring this up, we've got sectionals starting on Saturday. Vinton Shellisburg is at the West Delaware sectional. So you could have these guys facing off 6 times within a month, 3 times within 3 weeks, and who knows what happens in Des Moines. Could be another one there. But I tell you what, these two have put together some really good matches. even though that Sanders has won them all. Just kind of a quirky deal. They face each other so much here within 4, 5, 6 week span.
Well, and hopefully, if they both make it to state, which I would think they would, but hopefully if they do, they get seated on the opposite side, so it's a finals match in that maybe 6th matchup. More likely, because if they're in the same sectional, they're going to be in the same district, and then at state, so it would be the 6th matchup. Yeah, and in a 6th matchup, anything can happen.
Right. Couple of other accomplishments to point out. Clark Younggreen for Mount Vernon improved to 40-1. He won the 220-pound weight class. His pin in the semifinals gave him 28 for the season, which is a Mustang season record. So congratulations to Clark Younggreen on that. Cale Nash of Clear Creek Amana won the 106-pound title. Freshman is 34-7, but I was surprised to find out Clear Creek Amana's first WAMAC champion.
Well, how about that? I guess I hadn't thought much about it, but first of all, they're not that. I mean, they've been have they been in the WAMAC for how long?
I can't remember how long they've been in the WAMAC.
Yeah, so I guess I hadn't thought much about it, but wow, good for him. That's neat.
Yeah, they've had some good individuals, but the WAMAC's so tough that haven't gotten over that hump. But a nice job there. I also want to point out too, circling back to 220. At one time this season in the WAMAC, you had Wyatt Volker, Clark Younggreen, and Gage Marty all wrestle 220 pounds. So you had those 3 individuals at 220. They end up being champions at 190. Volker at 195, Younggreen at 220, and then Gage Marty ended up at heavyweight. So kind of interesting to see how they've kind of spread out over those top 3 weights instead of being clustered at 220.
Right. That's kind of nice. I mean, that 220, boy, if they'd all 3 been there, that'd been. I mean, we kind of think we might know who would win that, but you never know with that quality of wrestling. But that certainly kind of spread it out there for sure. Now, we talked about Younggreen with the pin record. Someone else around that area had a pin record as well. Is it a Lindmar wrestler? Is 27 or something?
I believe Kane Mascaborn's approaching it.
Right.
I think he's like 3 shy. So, definitely within his reach the way, he has performed with, you've got regional duels coming up for them. You've got districts coming up for them. I think it's safe to say a match down in Des Moines, a chance for 3. It's very, very well within reach for him.
Well, that's pretty cool to have those 2 athletes be the pin leaders in those programs, because those are very good programs, historically, and particularly Lindmar. When you're talking, who's the pin leader? Maybe McDonough or Borschel or one of those 2.
Borschel. Yeah, you've got some, Elijah Jeffrey. Could be up there as well, but that's something I'll have to look into. I'll have to find out from Doug Stryker who that leader is.
Very cool.
Well, speaking of five in a row, Lisbon did the same thing Saturday at home, winning the Tri-Rivers Conference tournament in their own backyard. Lisbon with 216.5 points. Albernet second with 195, and then East Buck third at 144. Lisbon with 5 champs as well, with Brandon Paez at 120, Quincy Happ at 126, Lincoln Halib at 152, Max Cole at 170, and then heavyweight Wyatt Smith.
Yeah, 9 finalists, 5 champs. We kind of knew Lisbon was going to be probably the champs here, certainly the favorites are going in, and then Albernet right behind. Again, stepping up again this weekend and having a good season for sure. So maybe about a 20-point spread between the two teams.
21. Yep.
Yeah.
And Alburnett had 3 titleists from. He got titles from Rowdy Neighbor at 106, Brody Neighbor at 132, and Carson Klosterman at 145 as well. Northland had 3 champs also, even though they finished a little further back. Cale Bridgewater at 138, Jaron Payton at 160, and Landon Paul at 182. And I mentioned that specifically because at 138, you had a final between Cale Bridgewater, who's ranked 5th from Northland, state medalist, versus 3rd-ranked Kate Siebrecht of Lisbon, who's a returning state champ. And Bridgewater came away with a 6-5 victory there in the final. Big takedown and 2 near fall in the last 22 seconds to win by a point.
Yeah, I'm going to take a branch off here for a second. When you say Cale Bridgewater, I think of the name Cale, and then at the WAMAC we had a champion from Williamsburg whose first name was Gable. So I'm thinking, is Iowa the state that has the most kids named Cale and Gable? I don't know.
That might be, because we also had 2 other champs in the MVC named Cale Kurtz, and then Cale Seaton for City High, who actually, I didn't mention this before, led the MVC with 66 match points in 3 matches. 2 of them ended early on by fall, and then a tech fall in the finals. But so we had at least three Cales as champions and a Gable. So
there you go. So I mean, I don't know if other states can claim that. Maybe Pennsylvania with Cale. I don't know, but hopefully we have the market covered on Gables, for the box, and a lot of other Gables.
Right. And then the other one at heavyweight, I want to point out, Wyatt Smith of Lisbon ranked 8th, pinned number 2 Cody Fox of East Buchanan. I believe that was Fox's first loss of the season. That came in the second period after Smith was out 4-1. One of the reasons I point this out, not only is it a big win, but Wyatt Smith kind of intrigues me a little bit just because he's one of those guys, probably could have been, we mentioned this with Costello a little bit on the college level, that he wrestled behind Brant Baltus the last couple of years. So he was behind one of the better 1A heavyweights in the state. Now he's gotten his chance. He's ranked 8th. He's stepping in, took his time, learned and developed, and now, coming away with a conference title and getting a big win in the finals. So his patience has paid off, and his work, obviously, he's reaping the rewards of that.
Right. And good for him for being able to do that. But that also speaks highly of the program and programs that are able to do that, keep their kids around when they're maybe not on that varsity all the time or ever, maybe, so, it's not only just the program, but also the school that puts enough emphasis on their athletics and their sports and their activities that people, if they're not first chair or first team or first, whatever, they're still going to be a part of it and want to be a part of it. And so, I just think that's a big part of it also.
Looking at a couple of the other conference champions, Waverly Shell Rock won the Northeast Iowa Conference. That isn't a big surprise. Union came away with the North Iowa Cedar League title. And then Sigourney Keota won the South Iowa Cedar League title over Iowa Valley, 237 to 154. Pretty convincing. They had 5 champs and 8 finalists. And bring that up, their 106-pound champion, Rena Utterbach, she was a champion at the IWCOA Girls State Tournament the weekend before on the 22nd, and then last weekend she follows that up with a conference title at 106 in the SICL. Pretty cool for her.
Right. That's quite an accomplishment and something that will end here shortly. She won't have that opportunity next year, is it? Maybe, or the year after, maybe, or whenever they are going to draw that line. Yep. So good for her.
Yeah. So we'll see how she progresses here with sectional starting up this weekend. And of course,
before we get started, I wanted to mention, since we were on Lisbon there, Lisbon's assistant coach, Brian Hall. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Brian Hall has retired from the Cedar Rapids Fire Department after 33 years.
Really?
He's been there and was there for 33 years. He was an assistant coach, volunteer assistant coach at Jefferson. Just walked into the room and said, "Hey, can I help out?" And I'm like, "Heck yeah!" He's lived right by Jefferson there. And then he was an assistant coach at Lisbon, became the head coach at Lisbon, stepped down from the head coach, was an assistant coach and the youth coach. And I just wanted to say, congratulations to retired Captain Brian Hall. How about that, huh?
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome. He's had a son come through and wrestle, and he's one of the most how would I say it? Most amiable guys you'll ever meet. It's a pleasure. Usually see him with a smile under that mustache of his.
They don't get any better than Brian Hall. You said it. He's so likable and just always in an upbeat mood. And even when he's got something that he shouldn't be upbeat about, he is. He just finds a way to do it. And he's such a great friend to all. And well deserved. So he's retired from the fire department and he's retiring from coaching, I think. So.
Oh, wow. Well, best of luck to him and congratulations to him, because that's awesome. Great service that he's provided for many.
Right. Actually, I want to say best of luck and my sympathies to Amy, his wife, who will now have
now she'll have to deal with him full time, huh?
That's right.
Well, hey, let's just touch on the sectionals coming up here. Looking at some of the 2A sectionals here in Eastern Iowa. West Delaware and Independence both host 2A sectionals. You've got Anamosa, Center Point, Urbana, Monticello, Tipton, Vinton, Shellisburg, and West Delaware. At Manchester, the sectional on the other side of that is at Assumption, where you have Davenport, Assumption, Comanche, DeWitt Central, Macokota, Northeast, and Dubuque Wahlert. I think between West Delaware, Vinton, Shellisburg, it might be the lion's share of qualifiers coming out of that, but there'll be some individuals from CPU, Tipton. We already talked about Anamosa. I think there's a Scranton there, Cole Sigler, conference champ. But could be interesting when those two merge together in the district, when you have West Delaware, Vinton, Assumption. Comanche has a couple good individuals as well.
Right. Yeah. And you got to believe West Delaware is going to pull out a lion's share of those qualifiers, those seats, first of all at the sectional and then probably at the district that's held at Solon. And then, then that other one you talked about it a little bit, Independence with Benton Community, Independence, Old Union, Vinton, Shellisburg, and Williamsburg. Don't forget, Benton has a body or two that's gonna say something too. Is it Jaden Moore, right? Yeah. So I forget what weight he's at now, but
126.
Thank you, 26, and it's gonna be fun to watch and see how that works out.
Yeah. The Independence field has Union Community in it. We just mentioned that they won their conference title. They've got some very good individuals. When you look at Jace Hedeman at 106, Hunter Worthen 52 or 60, right in there. So Union's a team that they could just climb as the as the next 3 weeks go on, because the guys that are going to be advancing and placing high at sectionals are going to do it at districts, and they're likely going to do that in Des Moines too. So this is a team that might be interesting to watch in Des Moines with who they get down there.
And they usually are. They have a great history for sure. And with bringing that up, it makes me wonder: is this our last year, KJ, of sectionals?
You know, there's a lot of buzz, and it seems like all signs point to this being our last year with sectionals. I know there's some other changes that are being bandied about with possible change in format, and even qualifying for or the field at state. Not sure where that's at right now, but it sounds more than likely that sectionals will are going to be this will be the last hurrah for sectional tournaments, which personally I think it's probably a few years overdue for a change. You know, it's just something that I think is necessary and needs to be done. I think a lot of people feel that too.
Well, as a 3A guy that never really had to go through sectionals other than when I was a competitor way back, decades ago, it's just something it's not ingrained in my head. And so, because it was always districts and state. And so, to me, it's just how it should be. And but I'm a 3A guy, but so I sympathize if that's what the 1 and 2A definitely want to go to, it sounds like. And, so yeah, let's do it.
So, okay. So I've been debating about what, do you share anything that you've heard, or you just kind of keep it to yourself because you don't know if, you just don't know what really is true, what's really accurate or whatever. But I mean, it's not anything that people haven't suggested or talked about doing in the past. It sounds like there might be changes. So with sectionals going away, which seems like it, but still nothing set in stone. They could go one of two ways. They could go to 12 districts in each class, and 2 wrestlers qualify for state from each district, which, is what it is now. The possibility of going to 8 with the top 3 going to state and expanding the field to 24 is something that sounds like has been talked about.
Yeah, I mean, and it may not be determined after that first year. I remember when I was in high school, they were still flirting, and they changed it every year. So particularly in my junior and senior year, it was structured differently. So my junior year, 3 kids went to state, and it was a 16-team sectional or district, and then the district champ had a bye first round, and then the other 2, and I don't remember which year, but it was different both years, and so they were kind of testing it out and made their changes, and as they've done through the years. So if they do it one way and see that it's not working, I'm sure they'll say, "Wait, we got to correct this and do it differently the next year." So there may be some tweaking that goes on.
Now, the other scenario I'll just throw out there, and I'm going to preface it by saying just throwing mud against the wall and seeing what may stick. So take it with a grain of salt. Say they do decide to expand state wrestling to 24 wrestlers per bracket. That probably would extend the state tournament, maybe making it a 4-day tournament again, like it was when they transitioned from Vets to Wells Fargo and stuff. If they do that, sectionals weekend is open.
Oh yeah.
The state duels.
State duels.
Did they move the brackets to 24-man brackets? Make it a 4-day tournament, then moving state duels to sectional weekend.
So my gut feeling is that's too close to the state, right in front of it, to do it. But maybe they'll do that. Maybe they'll say, okay, that's where it's going to be. Or maybe you pick a weekend, say late January. This is going to be our state tournament weekend, but because we've opened up a week later on in the season, bump your tournament either to that week or bump everything else back. I don't know. And,
Yeah.
because now you've created another week, that weekend there.
Yep.
So I don't know. We'll see how that works out. It's interesting to think about that. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah. So you'll have to keep your ear to the ground and kind of see what potential changes will be coming down the pike here. But yeah, I think this might be the end of the sectionals. And just really quick, since we're running kind of long, I'll just mention some of the hosts here in Eastern Iowa for 1A. You got Wilton that has a 1A sectional that'll include Northland and Alburnett in that field. MFL Marmac hosts. They'll have Dyersville Beckman, East Buck Cascade, part of that field as well. BGM will host Don Bosco, joining some of those South Iowa Cedar League teams. Belle Plains in there, Iowa Valley, as we mentioned before, getting second in the conference tournament there. Starmont will host sectional as well. English Valleys will host Lisbon. Iowa City Regina has a couple top wrestlers. They'll be there, as well as Highland, Lone Tree, Liza Muscatine, Waco, and Wapello. And then Sigourney Keota will host as well. We mentioned they just came away with a conference title. Minneapolis will be there. New London, who, that's a team with not a lot of quantity, but a bunch of quality there for North London. Some of their hammers wrestling at Sigourney Keota.
Okay, after you're saying, I'm going to throw this in. The regional duels came out yesterday, I think, last night for 3A. So I'll just go quickly through them, then we can wind it down. Waverly Shell Rock will host the winner of Dubuque Hempstead and Cedar Falls, and they're the number 1 seed. The number 2 seed Southeast Polk will host the Fort Dodge and Dallas Senator Grimes winner of that. And then Waukee Northwest will host the winner of Ankeny Centennial and Norwalk. Number 4 ranked Ankeny will host the winner of the Dowling and Urbandale meet. And don't ask me why number 5, Linn-Mar is number 5, but number 5 Linn-Mar will host the winner of Pleasant Valley and City High. And then the number 6 Bettendorf will host, don't ask me why, number 8, who should be hosting, North Scott.
Wow.
And Epworth. And then number 7 Indianola will be hosting the winner, whoever wins between Bonneret, Ferrara, and Ottumwa. And then number 9 Johnston will have number 10 Valley and the Carlisle, the winner. So basically, North Scott got kind of victimized by geography and travel distances. So that's how that happened, I'm sure. So, but they kind of didn't get to host, and now they're with Bettendorf, number 6. So
yeah, that's unfortunate there, because that's potentially two tournament quality teams. One of them is not going to get to go, and I know that's nothing new. I mean, that happens, and people trot out you got to beat them anyway, whatever, But still, that's unfortunate that they can't. You earn those top 8 spots. There's no prize that comes along with it,
right.
And like you said, sometimes geography kind of comes up and plays a big factor, and obviously that's probably the big thing here.
The bigger travesty to me is Linn-Mar being 5th, because if all teams ahead of them, the 1, 2, 3, 4, win out, now they're seeded 5th instead of where I think they should be 3rd. So now they're on the number 1 Waverly Shell Rocks half of the bracket when they get to state. So if they're seeded 3rd, they don't be seeded with the number 2 team, Southeast Polk, which I don't know if that's a whole lot better, but at least it seems to be right, because Linn-Mar beat Ankeny beat Waukee Northwest, and It's just like those three need to be flip-flopped.
Right. Right.
Actually, Waukee and Winmar need to be flip-flop. Ankeny should stay fourth. Anyway.
All right. Again, 1A and 2A regional duels will be Tuesday, the day before 3A. So we've got a lot of action coming up here in the next week and a half as we get closer and closer to Des Moines.
Yeah, it's that time of year.
Yep. So you guys will be able to watch us. We'll have our last telecast on KCRG 9.2 on Thursday. We'll have Waterloo East at Cedar Rapids Xavier to kind of finish up the regular season duels. So make sure you tune in and catch Coach and I on that. Of course, I'm still up in the air. I'm not sure where I'm going to go Saturday. Might be in Manchester, might be in Van Horn at Benton Community, but I'll definitely be at one of the 2A sectionals on Saturday.
And those regionals are those 1 and 2A regional dual tournaments meets are determined by the sectionals, correct?
Yep, sectional finish, runner up and champions will qualify for that. So a lot of big things coming up. And Coach, let's close things out.
All right. To our friend, let's keep wrestling on the move.
Thanks for watching, everybody.